the squat depth topic seems to never end.
Above parallel or about parallel, you are generally able to lift heavier and move faster, and this contextually will be important for an athlete to develop that concentric element. If we're looking at muscle growth, hypertrophy, full range of motion through that joint angle, given mobility limitations of the individual, this is more beneficial because we generate more stretch and mechanical tension through the muscle fibers to increase muscle growth and hypertrophy. If we're to talk about whether you should be doing parallel squat or otherwise, it's individually dependent, and also what your goals are, whether or not there's an ego involved. If you are lifting super heavy weights and you're not able to go into full range of motion and your goal is hypertrophy, perhaps you need to take some kilos off the bar.
So that goes out to all the half squatters. Everyone talks about getting stronger, but what does strength actually mean? So Ian and I will break it down, what strength actually is, and the myths that keep people from training it effectively. So Ian, what is strength?
So strength is the ability to produce force in different ways. And we have isometric, which is force without moving, things like planks or squat holds or wall sits, things like that. We have concentric, which is force while the muscles shorten, or for example, a bicep curl or standing up in a squat. We have eccentric, which is force while the muscles lengthen, so that would be going down. Isometric training locks joints for positional strength. Concentric training can overcome force and accelerate through movement. And eccentric training is for control, braking, as in stopping, and growth. Good training should hit all three of these.
So that means strength training is not only about the muscle size, right?
So we have muscular strength, and that is more muscle cross-sectional area, more contractile tissue, more ability to produce force. Then we have neurological strength, which is the nervous system's efficiency in coordinating strength. What we'll see and what we've alluded to before is that beginners, they'll often get stronger without getting bigger, and they've generally improved their neural efficiency. So we're thinking about muscular strength and neurological strength as two separate components, but actually working together.
So so the strength comes from muscle size and the nervous system's ability to use it.
Yes.
How do we express that strength? Does it make a difference, like whether we move an object then slowly or quickly?
So that's called rate of force development, and it's super important in performance sports, and potentially something that could also be important to add to everyday training. And again, understanding how we periodize and put blocks of training together for maximal performance, but in everyday people, but also to help with recovery and overtraining. Essentially, we're talking about how fast you can go from 0 to max effort. Training rate of force development is moving lighter to moderate loads with maximal intent. And we can look at things like plyometrics, ballistic exercises, for example. We could also look at loaded jumps, Olympic lifts, or well-programmed box jumps, let's say.
That's one of my favorite topics.
Okay.
let's talk about box jumps. Because somewhere along the line of our fitness industry and the history, it became a star of circuit workouts. This exercise as a cardio move and not as a ballistic or max effort exercise, which makes then, after your explanation, zero sense, right?
The goal ultimately from box jumps is maximal explosive effort, not endurance. And this does require quite a bit of rest between efforts. Unless you're doing something like French contrast, whereby you might implement other exercises together with it for a very specific reason, you need to do maximal explosive effort to move in the shortest amount of time possible to improve your rate of force development. If you're continually doing this over and over and over within a workout, you are kind of missing the point. Done properly, it's low reps, max recovery between jumps, so that you can implement impulse as quickly as possible to jump onto that box rather than being in a completely fatigued state while doing it.
Yeah, okay. So do we need to jump with maximum force necessarily. So can we just do box jumps, whatever? Like,
I think you can, and I think people do. And the soft plyo box, jumping onto it, you know, it's a bit safer. You and I have both seen issues.
Horrible injuries.
Yeah, people busting their shins open on a box because they felt like doing box jumps, or because it was badly programmed with a lot of other exercises that are fatiguing the lower body, and that person, regardless of whether they've been training box jumps or not, they've completely exhausted that system, and their ability to react and jump high enough is severely impaired.
One of the most popular fitness competitions are promoting it constantly also. Therefore,
who's that?
It's now CrossFit.
Ah, CrossFit.
I mean, it was in the last CrossFit Games again.
Jumping over the box and
Yes.
burpees and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah. What's the motto? Constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity?
Perfect.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
So they're looking at a lot of variety and being good at a lot of variety all at once, which kind of violates the laws of specificity. Again, we say, well, they are training all of those different modalities at different times. I'm not sure what they're doing with box jumps.
They use it as just an obstacle, to be fair.
Right, to
You
get
know?
over the obstacle.
Yeah.
And it's probably not like super hard, made out of wood.
No, and they also jump like from the side, and they
Right.
pull their knees like in a high mount. And as always, they try to be as efficient as possible.
Right, so essentially, how much hammering your body can take under fatigue. We should potentially be sticking to the origins of what an exercise is for, to periodize it properly for people to be able to get the benefits out of it. But not only that, like to understand why that exercise is there.
Mm-hmm.
Does the everyday person need to be explosive? I mean, you could argue they don't. And we'll keep coming back to the argument that some sort of movement and all of this overemphasis on periodization and progressive overload is too much and I don't need it and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Some level of understanding of it is important.
And then there is the highest box wins thing. Completely different approach, but we see it all the time also.
When we look at true force production in the shortest amount of time, transferring that force into the ground to be able to jump high or move quickly or change of direction quickly, which a lot of sports require for athletic prowess. It's kind of like what's necessary for your sport. You'll train your landing mechanics maybe slightly above what you can jump for a counter movement, right? With your hands on your hips, jump in the air. What is that? 30, 40, 50 centimeters at best. Maybe more for some athletes. You jump off a box to control the landing aspect of it, and then putting those things together to create explosive ability. Then if you look at jumping onto a super high box, the rest of what's coming from your jump is usually linked to mobility. So your ability to get your knees up into a really flexed position and use your arms to propel yourself further into the air in order to get on that box. You can look at how high they can jump in terms of then getting benefit from measuring how that jump changes over time.
Yeah.
But what you tend to find if you look at Paul Comfort's work is that when an athlete sees their jump height increasing, what tends to happen is they'll use all kinds of strategies to get that even more. So then the jump itself starts to change, and they'll move into more efficient, organized positions for themselves in order to get higher. And then you'll see the rate of force production reduces significantly. But as coaches, if we're only focusing on jump height, and they're using strategies to get higher and higher, it may be that they're actually slowing down over time. So we should be looking at the amount of time it takes them to take off.
That sounds like a very professional setup, but in the end you should isolate the jump, right? So without like pulling the knees, without like waving the arms, and trying to get as high as possible on an object.
We're talking about like box jumps and when and how to use them in a specific context to improve your ability to put force into the ground, which thus makes you more athletic or improves performance and your ability to access those fast twitch fibers. For those people that want to incorporate box jumps into an endurance workout, as your example from CrossFit, where there's a soft thing that they can jump over, do an activity, jump back over it, do an activity, jump back over it. That's something else. That's kind of quite similar to what you might see in classes when a coach is programming box jumps with various other exercises in a rotational circuit or as just part of the class. The coach might tell people, well, this is to improve power and all the rest of it, but if it's in combination with other exercises within the same time frame, it's unlikely that it's improving your power output.
Maybe that's not the goal, but changing the topics a little bit. Okay, you mentioned flexibility and force output. Let's talk about range of motion, because the squat depth topic the discussion seems to never end.
So range of motion changes how your body produces force. In a nutshell, if we take an example like a squat, and you squat to above parallel or about parallel, you are generally able to lift heavier and move faster. And this contextually will be important in performance sports again, for an athlete to develop that concentric element. If we're looking at growth, muscle growth, hypertrophy, bodybuilding, which a lot of the general population might be, longer ranges of motion or full range of motion through that joint angle, so from start to finish and back again, whether it's a bicep curl or a squat, and given mobility limitations of the individual, this is more beneficial because we generate more stretch and mechanical tension through the muscle fibers to increase muscle growth and hypertrophy. If we're to talk about whether you should be doing a parallel squat or otherwise, it's individually dependent on things like your joint's ability to open or close through specific positions, and also what your goals are, so specificity, whether or not there's an ego involved. If you are lifting super heavy weights and you're not able to go into full range of motion and your goal is hypertrophy, perhaps you need to take some kilos off the bar. So if you have a person who's not squatting full range with 100 kilos, if they're squatting to parallel or slightly above, and we then give them 100 kilos and ask them to go full range, providing their joints allow them to, there's a strong chance they won't be able to lift that 100 kilos. And if their goal is hypertrophy through the muscles or maximal strength through full range, then they should be lifting lighter and perhaps waiting a bit longer until they add those extra kilos.
So that goes out to all the half squatters there. It's kind of a relief, I would say, because they have some kind of an argument to squat also like half depth. It could be health, it could be mobility, it could be specificity, right?
A simple explanation as to why you would want to do a full range motion squat or ass to grass or all the way down would be weightlifting, because weightlifters are trying to impart maximal force through the ground by pulling the bar from the ground and then cleaning it to get under it. And if it's super, super heavy, they're not going to be able to pull it so high, so therefore they have to squat lower to get under the bar and then clean it up before they press it overhead for the clean and jerk and also for the snatch. So the benefit of being able to squat deep and lift weight out of a maximally loaded position, bottom position, makes sense for them. For a powerlifter, that sport's come about. I mean, I think there's aspects of powerlifting, and we could talk about historically what's going on there, and I might be inaccurate, but I think Louis Simmons has brought some stuff into powerlifting, Westside Barbell Method, and various others that have built on the work of people like Verkhoshansky, Matveyev, some of the early pioneers of lifting for performance sports, and they've said, right, well, let's like cap the depth at which people need to go down, and we want maximal load at this angle, right? So knee and hip in line, or hip slightly below knee. I'm not sure entirely. I'm sure people will tell us. But if we were to go back to that whole, what's your goal here? If we want to have a solid squat or a solid deadlift, let's say, we want to impart force through the joint's entire range of motion. Also for health reasons.
Yes, I wanted to say that because I mean, it's always helpful if your body is familiar with all the ranges of motion and can operate in ranges of motion if you are, for example, forced to when you fall or something like that. Yeah.
Maybe this is another topic.
Yes, it is. Good. So then let's talk about the so-called weak core problem, because everyone's heard the advice you just need more core strength. We hear that from physios also a lot. That means like I need to improve my core because my back hurts. You know, just yesterday I heard like a private story about that. So I need to strengthen my core. So you see them drop them right into planks and side planks, and that is the answer for them. Or is it just isometric work?
Really useful for rehab settings, building proprioception, learning bracing mechanics, potentially postpartum after pregnancy. It can be useful to do certain isometric exercises. But at some point you need to bring in, you know, the concentric and eccentric element, so you're moving through that full range of motion again. There's an old argument that you need to build your core to protect your back, or you need to build core strength, or you're weak in your core, and that's the priority. And if you do loads of planks, and if you do loads of bracing side planks and things like that, then that's going to sort that issue out for you. The truth is that if you work through the eccentric, isometric, and concentric contractions all together and independently, the overall thing will improve core, as we put it. Core is a bit of a buzzword, but it's effectively anything from in the trunk or all the way, it's been in some research all the way down to the thighs, right? So it's this whole region here. So your ability to co-contract those muscles, nothing does that better than big lifts like squats, deadlifts, carries, and that's got a huge amount of dynamic core activation. So that's moving through that entire range, bracing, not just bracing isometrically, and that should make sense for people. So I want to be careful. I don't want to shit on the idea that coaches shouldn't be doing core exercises. I've said myself that it can be an effective use of time under certain circumstances, but I don't think we should be saying, oh, my back is sore, therefore I need to do more planking. If your back is sore, there could be a number of reasons for it, but there are definitely better ways to exercise.
I would also say it's definitely not a solution, or probably not a solution for your back problems, and that is often solved for that.
Back problems
we will never solve.
People having protruding discs from their lumbar in absolute agony, and others with more of a protrusion in their lumbar or their lower back and no agony at all. So it's a really strange anomaly, and what we can do is strengthen the structures around that. So that is through those ranges of motion, using specificity and contracting both concentrically, eccentrically, isometrically through a range of different exercises. You know, it's like a balanced diet.
Yes. Let's come to another very important topic, which is stability work. Is it a friend or a filler? We all know this bozo balance work and wobble boards, which are not helping to produce force, right? So, but what is with all that single leg balance stuff that we always see? Sometimes you see in sports training that it develops you for unforeseen events. I always see that in football, for example. Is there a benefit to those exercises?
If you want to get bigger muscles or get stronger, you need to lift weights, but have a solid base of support to lift from. If you don't do that and your base of support is unstable, whether it be a wobble board or a bozu ball, or standing on one leg or closing your eyes, your brain is switching things off in order to stabilize your system and thus reducing your force output. Let's say if you reduce your ability to transfer force through the muscle in order for the muscle to adapt, grow, get stronger, whatever you need, essentially what we're doing is we're developing an ability to balance better, coordinate to some extent. When would this be useful? This would be useful in a rehabilitation setting. So someone who has lost connection to a joint, whether it's a knee injury or otherwise, we need to rebuild that connection to the knee. So that's where stability can be really useful. Also isometric training. So just static contractions teaches you to control the position, positional strength. Then you need to maximize the efficiency of your force production. So the floor should be completely stable. So should your shoes. If you've got running shoes on and you're trying to deadlift, you're going to be wobbling and squashing around and potentially not optimizing the amount of force you can produce. If you're an athlete or even just someone who wants to be better at something, you need to spend time practicing your sport. You need to practice tennis if tennis is your goal, right? You need to have the capacity to be able to play really long tennis matches.
Exactly.
And if you're using up precious time in order to do exercises that potentially don't add any extra benefit to it, then I think it potentially a waste of time.
My personal opinion, I don't know whether there's any truth to it because I have no insights, but I think many high-skilled coaches in professional sports, especially in football, as we asked, is it helpful or is it a filler? They use it as filler. And if they injure a person by putting too much weight on their back, I'm pretty sure they get fired. So it has also a mental and psychological
potential benefit, yeah.
Okay, that's it. Strength is not only about how much weight you lift, it's about producing force in all forms through the right range and with the right muscles doing their job. If you find this useful, let us know in the comments. Give us a like, subscribe to our channel. That helps the algorithm. Bye-bye.
Bye.